want me to say something?
You could do.
Oh, hello everybody. It's me again. Well, as you can see, it's been a rather a windy day, and but I have been working. And when you're outside, you can be just say, "Oh, I'm only going to paint for the morning," or "I'm only going to paint for the afternoon." Well, I like to paint throughout the day. If a man came up to me yesterday, he said, "How can you make the light when it's changing all the time?" And I said, you have to compensate, and you have to sort of, so you have to do things at various times of the day in order to compensate for the change of light. In other words, sometimes of the day I'll be doing the drawing, where it's just in line, or else I would just be painting in flat patches of colour, which I can remember as being right. Okay, and it's a matter of compromise all the time. I don't really like doing two paintings at once. I like the idea of doing one, getting my teeth into it, and continuing with that. Today, well, I have been putting on colour. I have finished the drawing, the basic drawing here, and now I'm trying to, and I have to do it when I get home, slightly tone that down to make this stronger in the foreground. So I've done it a bit there. I have to keep it warm but slightly dark. It's basically just keeping on, going round and round and round, drawing things. Now at the moment what I'm trying to do is, I know that's quite some way away from that, and there's a space between, and I'm trying to think how I can express that on a flat piece. I didn't get many people, I only had one man come up today. I had 2 men and a rabbit yesterday, so it was getting less.
Have you got a tip for today?
I think the tip actually is you have to train your mind to remember things, to remember when is the best time to paint it. I think that is when is the best time to work on certain areas. So trying to make things that are quite, trying to simplify it as masses. I don't want too much fiddly detail. You're not recording, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, why do you have to keep doing that? It's so cruel. I'm all the time moving around the picture the whole time, and working on a little bit, then working on something else. Yeah, my basic pigments I'm using are ink, which is black Indian ink, which is in here as well as in the bottom. I've got and sometimes I've been using a dip pen where I've watered down the ink to put finer lines in the distance on here, like on there. And then I'm also using cadmium red, cadmium orange, burnt sienna, permanent rose, and Windsor blue. There we are. That's my colour spectrum on my very clean plate. There we are. You can have a better look at it. There we are. I can't be doing with all this rubbish about palettes and everything. Get a good old kitchen plate, I say. It almost makes me think that I should have given up art, is the affectation that so many people have regarding art. So much rubbish affectation around it. For me, it's like eating or doing any other bodily functions. It's as important as that to me. It's a language for me to express myself. Another thing, people talk about taking photographs, and I thought today this is rather a good analogy I had. Yes, there's no reason why you can't work from photographs, but it's a bit like saying, "Oh, I don't want to have sex. I will just get, I shall get it off the computer, sort of, and computer sex game or something, or whatever you might say." That's the same analogy, really. And to me, it's rather boring. It's better to have the real thing, really. It's better to draw from the real thing. Like, it's best to have sex rather than just sort of, any other way of doing it. Am I getting a bit confusing here? My analogy. It sounded good earlier, but it perhaps isn't so good now. And then once you've done all the drawing, that's the sex part. Once you've done all the drawing, you then get on and you carry on the painting, and that's like having children, and it goes through lots and lots of turmoil like children do going through teenage years. So I thought that was quite a good comparison. But it's not a sort of thing that probably would go down very well when people would say, well, of course, well, I'm not really sure whether one should be saying that. And sort of that sort of rather silly affectation you get in the art world. Anything else? Have I just really destroyed the whole ethos of being an artist? No, I don't think I have. After all, wasn't it Cézanne who said paint with your balls? No, I think it's far more exciting sitting out here and drawing it than coming along, doing a little snapshot and going back to the studio and colouring it all in. I actually don't see the point of it, quite honestly.
What about working from sketches?
I don't actually enjoy working from sketches either. I mean, I do it if one's pushed to it. I don't really enjoy it because I consider it to be a journey of discovery. That's why I compare it to bringing up children. You know, if you have your children, and you know, this is when you get people who say, "Oh, it's so nice to be a grandparent. You just hand them back." But the fact is, you know, what is so exciting about having children is you don't really know what the end result's going to be, and it's a 24-hour commitment. And that's what I think it is with painting. You don't know what the end result's going to be. No, all painters say they know what the end result's going to be. I think that's a load of tosh. After all, the crow might come and make a mess on here, and I'd have to then compensate in the painting, something I hadn't prepared.
A lot of artists say, a lot of portrait artists say they do this, is that they will spend a sitting or whatever, a few hours doing sketches, and then they might take some photographs, and then they sort of go away from do the painting, perhaps on the sketches, but then perhaps on the photographs. I don't know what they most rely on. The portrait artist is convenient for the sitters.
I think that's what most artists do. I think it's unusual for an artist to sit out and paint from beginning to end outside like I am. But I mean, yes, of course, occasionally I have to work from drawings, but I always think you can never get as much information as you can sitting in front of the object and you know, taking it off into its own world. I'm not saying just blindly copying it. Yes, at the beginning I was copying it, but then as the time goes on, you're developing it into its own individual self. I think a lot of the reasons that a lot of the time people don't feel very confident, and I think the only way of gaining confidence is by keeping on and on, going back to working from direct observation. And that is the only way you can gain greater and greater confidence when you're working. You're training your eyes. I always say the eyes are like stomach muscles. If you don't train them, they go saggy on you. Personally, I can't wait to get outside. It's so awful being inside all the time. I think I'm the person who was born to live outside. I understand. I think this is such a perfect situation being an artist, where you can, you know, if you're self-employed, you can decide what you want to do. You know, if you want to be outside or be inside. Most people don't have that luck, unfortunately, in Britain. You can't work out all the time, so that's why with my work I have paintings like stumps, tree stumps and bits of wood. I always have people who come with pieces of wood for me, and then I work on those in my studio when it's wet and impossible to get outside. Now I should gradually darken this down. I should do that when it's home. The reason is I'm not going to try putting a wash down out here because it's so hot. But it's impossible to move it. Quite a lonely world being an artist. You are rather I'm naturally a person who's a natural performer. So being an artist yes, you do get your times when you can be on exhibition, or your work can be on exhibition, but it is quite an isolated profession. It's rather wonderful, isn't it? Dead bracken. In fact, I quite like things that are dead, really. Dead bracken, dead tree stumps, because they don't really move. So that's quite an advantage, really. I've got a thing here, it's called a dip pen. Basically, just buy a nib and use an old paintbrush and stick a nib on with a bit of sellotape. Don't bother wasting money on getting all the pen things, they're quite expensive. And you can actually draw in with watercolour I put on it, and you can put that onto your painting like so. And it can have quite a good effect. Now the thing is, what I'm wanting to do with this, I'm trying to get the sense of this being nestled in here, and this I've got to play that down eventually there to make that go further away. This has got to be nestled in here, and I just keep on and on nagging at it until it works for me. It's infuriating how the light changes during the day, but there's little one can do about that.
Could do like Monet and work on certain paintings only certain times of the day.
No, but I would find out I would get bored of that. And there's an obvious reason why he did do that.